The biggest central bank with $7 trillion of assets under management just sent a massive Bitcoin warning to the rest of the world. This newest announcement is not only a game changer because it is the catalyst required to send Bitcoin to $5 million per coin, confirming one of Michael Saylor's predictions, but it is also putting the rest of the world's central banks on notice. But before we get into all that and running the numbers of this prediction, let's see what the corporate press thinks about this announcement.
Squawk Box this morning. Banking regulators pulling back some U.S. cryptocurrency guidance. This is interesting, guys, because the Fed said it was withdrawing supervisory letters that said that banks should seek advance approval from authorities before engaging in crypto asset and stablecoin activities. In addition, the Fed, the FDIC, and the Office of the Controllers of the Currency pulled back statements from 2023 that urged banks to be careful when it comes to crypto-related risks. During the 2024 campaign for the White House, President Trump promised crypto investors that he would have their backs if he was reelected. In a statement announcing the latest changes, the Fed said that regulators would look into whether new guidance to support crypto asset innovation was appropriate. But it means effectively that I think a lot of those letters had scared the banking system sort of out of getting meaningfully involved in crypto. And now they're saying, do what you like.
Here's the question. I mean, because it's the Fed doing that, it's not like an executive order where it's going to get whipsawed if another administration comes in 4 years, I would assume. But again, the politicization of it probably has some things a little concerned about whether the winds would change again at some point. I guess maybe it's better because it's coming from the Fed.
Well, I think part of it's coming from the Fed, and it sounded like part of it was coming from
the administration. That's what I don't understand. This was part of the campaign promises to do these things. Again, businesses just don't like getting whipsawed by changes in administrations that lead to huge changes in policy.
I don't know if this means that all of a sudden you're going to go to your local Chase on the corner and be taking Bitcoin. But you can't take Bitcoin.
Look, I guess it does feel very different. It does feel very different in that crypto is becoming much more widely accepted, and maybe if they can get more regulation that kind of cements that, maybe it would make the banks feel a little better about it.
I mean, look, we used to interview Janet Yellen, and she would always talk to you about the risks of it.
Right.
By the way, Jamie Dimon would talk to you about the risks of it. So I don't know. It's interesting because there are people in the banking system who still have their own views of the risks.
But I think the banking system would also like to offer their customers whatever their customers want.
Look, Larry Fink was against it until
Love to see it. Also, guys, I'm here with the legendary and beautiful internet Sophie, aka Nico's wife. So be nice to her. And of course, Brian DeMint from Orange Pill App, one of my favorite guests. He's always bringing the signal. So as you can tell, obviously the Fed is pulling back on their very stringent and tough crypto regulations that we saw come in a couple of years ago under the Biden administration. And as you can hear them, they're kind of wrapping their heads around this idea, like, is this a good thing? Is this a big deal? Will this be changed because of the next administration coming in? So it seems as of now, we are kind of seeing a lot of good signal to this idea that we are going to have a more pro Bitcoin regulation, or you might argue a pro crypto regulation. So interesting. And of course, the idea of bringing up Janet Yellen and Jamie Dimon on here, as we always say, if it's someone's job to not understand the incentives, of course, they're going to publicly not endorse this idea. So anyways, let's get into the press release here, and then I will cover again, you've probably heard it on the show, what Saylor's prediction for $5 million needs, which is 3 things. And then I have an interesting take from Senator Lummis. So first of all, we have the press release here. I'm on federalreserve.gov. This was dropped last night at 5:30. And it goes, Federal Reserve Board announces the withdrawal of guidance for banks related to their crypto asset and dollar token activities and related changes to its expectations for these activities. The Federal Reserve Board on Thursday announced the withdrawal of guidance for banks related to their crypto asset and dollar token activities and related changes to its expectations for these activities. These actions ensure the board's expectations remain aligned with evolving risk and further support innovation in the banking system. It is interesting how they keep saying this evolving evolving risks meme here. And now that we have a new pro-Bitcoin administration, they're like, oh, these risks are completely out the window. You know, you banks, we were telling you for a while, you shouldn't be custodying Bitcoin. It's dangerous for investors. And then right when Trump gets in, we have Jay Powell come out. It's like, actually, no, banks can custody this Bitcoin. So it's interesting how quickly they change their tune. Anyways, the board is rescinding its 2022 supervisory letter establishing an expectation that state member banks provide advance notification of planned or current crypto asset activities. As a result, the board will no longer expect banks to provide notification and will instead monitor banks' crypto asset activities through the normal supervisory process. Now, Andrew Sorkin on that clip said you're probably not going to be walking into a bank and, you know, getting Bitcoin as he framed it. But it is interesting that the Fed does supervise. I think it's over 1,400 commercial banks. So if they're being a little more lenient on these banks and they don't have to actually get approval up front, you could argue that you might be able to walk into your friendly neighborhood bank and eventually get some Bitcoin. And I think this is probably where we're headed. Now, this next part is pretty interesting. They don't actually say stable coins, but I'm pretty positive that this is what they are talking about. So the board is also rescinding its 2023 supervisory letter regarding the supervisory non-objection process for state member bank engagement in dollar token activities. Now, this is something I've been talking about on the show for a long time. Is we are seeing that the Trump administration and, you know, Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent and basically all of the cabinet now, they are starting to push for more pro stablecoin regulation and push pro stablecoin bills. And I think now we're starting to see that, hey, maybe the Fed is capitulating on this point. Maybe they are bending the knee. As much as we understand that the Fed gets their power from fiat currencies, from dollar dominance, we are seeing that they are pulling back a little bit on their attack against stablecoins. Now, you know, I'm not the biggest stablecoin fan, but I think we can start to see where the road is going. And again, shouts out to our boy Mark Goodwin. He's been on the beat here on this Bitcoin dollar system. And of course, if they are less stringent on stablecoin adoption, that does kind of take some power away from the Fed. Anyways, finally, the board, together with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is joining the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and withdrawing from two 2023 statements jointly issued by the federal bank regulatory agencies regarding banks' crypto asset activities and exposure. The board will work with the agencies to consider whether additional guidance to support innovation, including crypto asset activities, is appropriate. So, to wrap up this press release, it is interesting that we are seeing the Fed seemingly be more favorable towards Bitcoin, and I guess maybe the angle is more favorable towards stablecoin adoption. So this is, I would say, probably a big development, though I will bring up Senator Lummis's take on this, which is actually the opposite. And here we go. This is probably why you clicked on the video. We played this clip for you guys on this show multiple times, so I'm not going to play it again. But just to kind of summarize, Michael Saylor made this prediction over 2 years ago, and it might even be longer now if I'm not forgetting. Actually, yeah. About 2 years ago. And he said there's three things that are needed for Bitcoin to go to $5 million per coin. And now it seems like all of those obstacles are out the window. First was, of course, the spot Bitcoin ETF approval, which happened. That is done. We've seen that the spot Bitcoin ETF is literally the most successful ETF launch ever. And then this is where the second one comes in. I think this is kind of leading towards this direction, which is banks custody and lending against Bitcoin as collateral. We have seen that there is approval for banks to custody Bitcoin. Now it looks like the Fed's kind of pulling back on them being anti-custodying Bitcoin in banks. And then, of course, three, the fair value accounting rules from FASB, and that also has been approved. So these three things, these three obstacles seemingly are going out the window. And yes, I know price speculation, $5 million Bitcoin sounds crazy, but we are seeing that the road to $5 million Bitcoin is happening in real time. So it looks like we are getting a more pro-Bitcoin regulation in the United States. So say what you want about Trump, but in regards to his action and follow through in Bitcoin, it seems like he's doing a very, very great job. He is following through on a lot of the Bitcoin things he was talking about during his campaign. Now, I think the most interesting take here, though, is Senator Cynthia Lummis. And she goes, the Fed withdrawing crypto guidance is just noise, not real progress. We are not fooled. The Fed assassinated companies within the industry and hurt American interests by stifling innovation and shuttering businesses. The fight is far from over. Now, I love to hear this take. Yes, of course, as a Bitcoiner, we always like to take our maybe small wins and make them into mountains. But I think she's kind of right. We are still not out of the woods yet. It does seem like we are turning a page in regards to how Bitcoin is looked at in the mainstream, in traditional finance, and of course, coming from the federal level. So I would say that I think heeding Senator Lummis's warning here is very important. You know, it's important to understand the context here. The Fed hasn't been favorable towards Bitcoin. And now you can argue that they're probably only being favorable in regards to Bitcoin and stablecoins because of the Trump administration putting pressure on Jay Powell. We all know the trade war going on. We all have probably heard Trump, talk a lot of smack about Jay Powell recently. He's been trolling him constantly on Truth Social, but I think the point remains the same. We are turning a page here, and the road to extremely ridiculous price predictions are coming clearer in our minds here. And we all know it's going up forever. So once all of these uncertainties are figured out and completely ironed out, I think we can start to unleash the Bitcoin price pump that we're all waiting for here. Anyways, I'm going to pass this to Brian. Brian, what's your thoughts on first the Federal Reserve's announcement and then Senator Lummis's take on this?
I mean, the announcement, I think it's good to be skeptical of this stuff, but the sly roundabout way is happening. That's what's so cool about this is that whether it's sincere, whether it's just rhetoric, Bitcoiners are shaping the narrative right now. What we do, how we spend our money, the conviction that we have. There's probably no other cross-section of people in financial markets that have a higher conviction than Bitcoiners. And politicians, regulators, bureaucrats, they pay attention to that. So we are shifting the narrative. You talk about this consistently, that the Overton window is shifting and Bitcoiners are making that happen. Now, let's say, Sorkin talked about how, you're not going to go down to your bank and get Bitcoin. Well, that actually is on the horizon. That kind of stuff is happening. Now, think about the math on that. There's 44,000 banks in the world. 21 million divided by 44,000 banks. Every bank can only have 477 Bitcoin. It doesn't take a whole lot of demand from banks to completely dry out the supply. Now, if you want to just talk about the unmined supply, there's 1.1 million unmined Bitcoin. Banks, if they all got an even share of all Bitcoin left to be mined, they would get 25 Bitcoin each. There's so few Bitcoin and so many institutions out there that will need exposure to it. It will be part of their fiduciary responsibility if they're a financial player, whether you're a publicly traded company, whether you're a bank, whether you're an insurance company, whatever, if you're responsible for money, it will become, this is the shift that we're seeing that we as Bitcoiners are pushing, you will see a shift towards the necessity, the moral obligation to have exposure or the ability to get your clients exposure to Bitcoin. 25 Bitcoin for your entire financial institution is not going to cut the mustard. 477 Bitcoin for JP Morgan is not going to cut the mustard. There is going to be a run on Bitcoin or demand for Bitcoin like we've never seen before. And Senator Cynthia Lummis, I love that she sees other people trying to steal her clout. I think this is part of it. She wants the legacy. She wants to build her political legacy because she knows where Bitcoin is going. She wants to build her political legacy off of the idea that Bitcoin is going to fundamentally transform the world. And I think it's going to, in large part, transform the United States. And I think she wants to be tied to that. I don't think she wants anybody stealing her clout. She wants her Bitcoin bill and buying 1 million Bitcoin to be the center of attention. I think that's coming soon. I think July is when we're going to really see this stuff heat up in terms of legislatively. Not only is she trying to gain traction, there's plenty of states that are gaining traction with their state bills. I don't think her or Trump want the clout of the American Strategic Reserve to be undercut by these by state reserves, and they don't want regulators to get credit. Like they certainly don't want the Federal Reserve to get any kind of credit for the Bitcoinization of the world. And so this is awesome. Aligned incentives. If you guys have watched Simply Bitcoin, you understand the power of aligned incentives, because Nico and Opti talk about this a lot. It's one of the most important things to understand of why Bitcoin will win. It tailors everybody's incentives to move in the same direction.
Love it, Brian. I actually didn't think of that angle. I think I think that might be a great angle here. Like Senator Lummis just doesn't want to take the wins out of her sails. But I think like your point remains the same. We are seeing aligned incentives. We are seeing, hey, like I said earlier, love or hate Trump. We are seeing that when it comes to Bitcoin, or rather maybe stable coins here, we all know his shitcoin. There's a lot of follow through here, and you could argue where that pressure is coming from, but for us Bitcoiners, I think this is a good thing, and like you said, this is going to make waves and ripples around the world, and now everyone is going to have to take Bitcoin very seriously. So I'm sure the dominoes will fall very quickly. Now, Sophie, I consider myself kind of the extremist on the show, but you are probably way further along the path than I am. So just remember, we're on YouTube here. What is your take on the Federal Reserve announcement?
I'm not going to get us banned. Actually, today I have the mom take, because the way that I see it, Bitcoin is now a 16-year-old child, right? They're getting to an age where they want to completely separate from the control or the seeming control of their parents. And so the Fed pulling back on, giving crypto guidance, they never really had any control to begin with. Let's be honest. I think that the next logical step, first of all, I think it's also the fact that the Fed has way bigger things to worry about, like cutting interest rates, not printing money, et cetera, ceasing to exist. So now the next logical step is taking this matter to Congress and making it part of the law that there is no regulation over Bitcoin. There is no regulation and crypto maybe, but I think maybe there should be a little bit of regulation on Ethereum and shitcoin so that people don't get screwed over. But to begin with, you could never control Bitcoin. So from my perspective, this is Bitcoin growing up. And the way that I interpreted Senator Lummis's take on all of this is there's still a lot of work to be done. Does it mean that just because the Fed is going to be pulling back on regulations that you're in the clear and that you shouldn't take self-custody and you should trust the banks and ETFs and these platforms with your Bitcoin? Absolutely not. You should still be weary. You should still be taking self-custody. And that's the thing that we ultimately need to protect with the law, so that there isn't another administration that just comes in and changes the winds of the Fed. So I think that on one hand, the Fed has a lot of other things to worry about. They've realized, look, there's not much that we can be doing here. There wasn't anything that we could do since the beginning. So we're just going to move on. And now it's the job of the community to push for that, to kind of kick the ball to Congress so that it is solidified into law, so that people like Senator Lummis can do their job and make it so that nobody could ever take away our right to self-custody and our right to own Bitcoin.
Love it. Sophie, motherhood is looking good on you. She's coming in a little more balanced, a little more neutral on the show.
It's making me smarter, actually.
But no,
I'm not 80 IQ anymore. I'm actually 90
Wow.
IQ now. So
well, my IQ is dropping. I'm at 45 now. I don't know how that happened, but I think your point remains. I think both of you guys are kind of saying something very similar. It's like, look, this is good. Very good news coming out of the Fed, but we still have to kind of solidify this into law in the United States. And of course, that's going to have to go through Congress so that it doesn't change if we get an anti-Bitcoin president next, 3-4 years from now. So it's baby steps towards the right direction, and I'm excited to see where this lands. But we are starting to see that the narrative around Bitcoin is fundamentally shifting, whether, it's the Fed bending the knee, whether it's the Trump administration being more favorable to Bitcoin. Now we just need to see that trickle down into Congress and, solidify that, hey, us Bitcoin, we're not criminals here. We just want to make sure we hold something.
This way, the U.S. is way behind on Bitcoin adoption. El Salvador had it as legal tender before we did. Even Europe has kind of a little bit more of adoption. Hong Kong, the UAE, all of these countries are moving at the speed of light. If the US wants to be the leader in Bitcoin adoption, we need to not just pull back on Fed regulations, which again, they couldn't do anyway. We need to make this part of our laws. We need to even perhaps propose an amendment where we make Bitcoin legal tender. It cannot just stop at pulling back regulation. It can't just stop at a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We won't stop until we're able to use Bitcoin to pay our water bill, to pay our electricity bill, and to have that be the basis for abolishing taxes. But that's a whole other conversation.
There she is. There she is.
I always got to get the taxes in because it's just,
there she is. Love it. Love it.
April 15th was only 10 days ago. Don't trigger me.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. So we have a jam-packed show for you guys. I am going to kind of continue this theme. So if you think this $5 million Bitcoin prediction is crazy, well, I have a clip of Saifdean kind of explaining where the capital will come from. And then in the news, I have a kind of an update on Jack Mallers' 21 Capital. And I have a clip from my boy Nolan. And I think he really makes a good point of how significant this move is. And I really want to play it on the show for you guys because I haven't heard anyone else say something like this. And then, of course, in the culture, we have Brian DeMint here. So we have some cool stuff, some cool updates coming out of Orange Pill app and a call to action for everyone out there. So before we go on, though, I do want to remind you guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, of course, comment on the video below. Is Bitcoin winning? Is this good for Bitcoin, or are us Bitcoiners just, getting too caught up in the hype here? Anyways, of course, moving on, we do want to give a shout out to our boys over at bitcoinwell.com. Everyone always asks us, hey, how can we support Simply Bitcoin? Just go to our partners. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc, sign up, and you will win 3 chances to win 1 million sats in the Bitcoin Well Wishing Well. And then, of course, guys, they are self-custody by default, which literally means they can never rug you. This is why we partnered with Bitcoin Well, is because we believe in self-custody. We believe this is the best way to do things. You literally need a Bitcoin wallet to buy from Bitcoin Well, and that means they never hold on to your Bitcoin. Once your fiat cash goes through, the Bitcoin gets sent directly to you guys. So again, go to bitcoinwell.com, simply BTC to sign up. On that note, let's get into the show.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, we made it super easy for you guys to secure your generational wealth. Scan the QR code on the screen and use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off. All right, guys, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard, and the current Bitcoin price is $95,350 per Bitcoin. I was trolling before the show with Sophie and Brian. I'm like, guys, you know, I know we're only at 95K, but this 95K feels a little better than the last time we were here. It's probably because of the market dropping and we've been going sideways.
I'm still so bored.
I know.
I think until we get to like at least 120, I'm just gonna like twiddle my fingers and count the clouds.
We're also entitled here. Anyways, the stats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much a dollar's worth in Bitcoin is currently at 1,049 sats per dollar. The current block height is 893,937, and the market cap of Bitcoin in fiat terms is $1.89 trillion. We are inching back towards $2 trillion market cap, and the Bitcoin versus gold market cap currently at 8.15%. Wow, I think that's like a what 0.35% since yesterday. That's kind of crazy. Anyways, the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is currently at 94.55%, roughly 19.855 million coins in circulation, and the realized monetary inflation is currently at 0.84%, taking fiat currencies to school. All right, guys, as I was telling you, we got this clip here of Saifdean, and I know literally everyone's like, oh, all these guys ever talk about is Bitcoin going to $1 million per coin. Well, one, we are hopium here. We're here to make sure that you guys are entertained, and, you know, for better or worse, people love the Bitcoin price predictions. And two, this is the inevitability. If you understand what's going on with Bitcoin, if you lightly understand what's going on in TradFi, you understand the memes that we constantly say. It's going up forever, Laura. There's nothing stopping this train. The big print is upon us. Well, we have Saifdean, the legendary author of the Bitcoin Standard, explaining to you, kind of continuing the theme that this isn't out of the realm of possibility, guys. This is exactly what's playing out, and we're seeing it happen in real time. So in the interim, in the short term, yes, as Sophie's saying, we're bored with the price movement because it's like it's not going up quick enough. We've been spoiled. But I think as a Bitcoiner, once you understand how Bitcoin works, why Bitcoin does what it does, these price predictions don't seem crazy. Of course, we don't know the time frame on this stuff, but we do know the meme is real. It's going up forever. Anyways, let's hear Saifdean explain this to you.
Thought this is insane, but here we are. It's going up, and I think, you know, it's still early days in the sense of just numbers, because I think it's you know, it's not a matter of consumer adoption. It's not a matter of how many people download the iPhone, how many people download a Bitcoin app. For me, it's about the size of the cash balances more than the number of people. And so you can look at the size of the cash balances that are in dollars. There are, or dollars or dollar-based currencies, which are all other fiat currencies in the world. You've got around $100 trillion in fiat currencies. You have another $100 trillion in bonds, and you have something like another $30 trillion in gold and some other assets, maybe real estate and stocks. Some of that you could think of as being a cash substitute, which Bitcoin is competing with. So I would say the total market for a monetary asset is about $300 trillion. Bitcoin's already at 2 trillion, which is, I mean, impressive, because in 15 years, going from 0 to 2 trillion is the fastest that we've ever seen. We've never had an asset, anything, grow this fast. So it is quite impressive, but still got a long way to go. And I would say you could say that Bitcoin is the monetary standard of the world when it is the largest of these assets, probably around something in the range of 100 trillion or so. So still a while away. But with Bitcoin, you never really know how long it could take, you know. That could be another few months, because we've seen these crazy pumps in Bitcoin. But most likely it's not going to be a few months. Most likely it's going to be several years. And that's fine. I think it's a process that needs time. People need to accumulate cash balances. People need to become more familiar with how to use Bitcoin. And I think over time, it's just inevitable, because the people who accumulate Bitcoin will witness the value of their cash balances increase, whereas the people who don't accumulate Bitcoin.
This is the signal here, guys. One, of course, Saifdean didn't give us a time frame here, but I think we're all kind of thinking something similar. Like, There's a non-zero chance that Bitcoin could rip very quickly, considering who knows what's going to happen in traditional finance. If something fundamentally breaks in traditional finance, then I would argue most of that capital would end up in Bitcoin. But this is a long-term game. As a Bitcoiner, we always talk about low time preference, thinking long-term here. And as every one of us understands, once you understand Bitcoin, this is the inevitable game here. So, Saifdean is saying a $300 trillion market cap is probably a conservative bet on how big of a market share a pure money could get. And if you're looking at today's market cap, that's a conservative 150x from here. So, you can say what you want about Bitcoiners and our price predictions, but if it goes, and of course this is a big if, we're not saying that Bitcoin win or there's an inevitability of Bitcoin winning and doing what we say it does, but again, a non-zero chance that it's headed in the direction we're saying. And I think I could safely say that Saifdean is probably on the right track. We all know global market capital right now is around 900 trillion. If you don't think Bitcoin's going to get a small portion, if not a decent chunk of that global capital, because everyone's using different kind of assets for store values, do you really understand Bitcoin? And of course, I'm not here to Bitcoin shame anyone here, but I think this is a very conservative bet. On a long enough time frame, I see this playing out very, very clearly. Again, I love using the metric or the heuristic that Bitcoiners can predict the future. Once your fundamentals are in place as a Bitcoiner, it starts to become a lot easier to see where the future is headed. And if we do end up on, the fabled Bitcoin standard globally, I think these are conservative bets. Anyways, I'm going to pass it over to Brian again. Brian, what's your thoughts on Saifdean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just always funny reading the comments where, the Simply Bitcoiners are just awesome. They're like, why is he so bearish? Only $100 trillion is coming in. Yes, I'm with you guys. And it's not because that's bearish. It's because of what are the implications of $100 trillion coming into Bitcoin. And it's again, over time, but there's quadrillions of dollars of wealth in the world. We actually, as crazy as central banks have gotten and as much fiat as they've printed, if you were to accumulate all the fiat in the world, you couldn't buy all of the stuff in the world. We actually don't have enough fiat currency. We don't have enough currency to actually buy all of the wealth because nobody sells all of the buildings and all of the property and all of the gold and all of the equities all at the same time. So you actually don't need all of the capital in the world. So there's an imbalance, and it's okay, but there's an imbalance between the wealth in the world and the currency, the amount of currency notes. What Saifdean is talking about are the currency notes. There's $100 trillion of various currencies out in the world. That is a total addressable market for Bitcoin, is how much currency is there at play. Now, you don't need $100 trillion to just all currencies are completely gone and $100 trillion is going into Bitcoin. You only need a portion of that to go into Bitcoin to make Bitcoin a $100 trillion asset. And here's why. It's some people call it the multiplier effect. I like to refer to it as capital flow inertia, but let me give you a really easy example. Fiat is a big pool of water. Bitcoin is a small pool of water. Take Lake Superior, a giant lake. If you took 1 million gallons of water out of Lake Superior, the level of Lake Superior, like it wouldn't even drop. It's such a vast body of water that the water levels wouldn't even drop. But if you took 1 million gallons of water and put it all into your pool in your backyard, your entire neighborhood would flood. So a million gallons coming out of one lake doesn't affect it, but that same million gallons going into the small pool has an enormous effect on it. And that's what's going to happen with Bitcoin as these dollars are coming out or these fiat currencies are collapsing into Bitcoin. You don't need the $100 trillion to collapse in order to have $100 trillion effect on Bitcoin. And that's the profound thing. If anybody's sleeping on this and what he's saying, that sounds too overly bullish, that's why the Simply Bitcoiners are understanding. I'm trying to put words to why they're making this. It sounds like a joke, but it's serious. Why is he so bearish? It's not bearish. It's a very realistic statement because it only takes a small fraction of that to have a $100 trillion effect on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, sometimes like even Bitcoin will admit sometimes price predictions are just fun, and we are trolling and having fun and just like throwing something ridiculous on the wall and hoping that our predictions correctly. But it is a very conservative bet. And Brian, well, you what did you call the multiplier effect? I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, it's overly complicated. Capital flow inertia.
Love it.
I love that. I was actually kind of thinking the same thing as Brian. He put it in such a beautiful analogy. But right now, Bitcoin's around 2 trillion, like Saifdean mentioned. And the thing is, it doesn't need to be that big right now for it to become inevitable, because unlike every other asset, Bitcoin doesn't rely on cash flow, yield, or any sort of institution regulating it, as we said before. Its value is purely from adoption and purely from scarcity. So there's never going to be more than 21 million coins, period. And the more capital flows into it, and the more we keep printing money, the more Bitcoin's share of global assets has to grow. So Brian just put it so beautifully. And I love the analogy of the lake, because right now, the amount of money that is going to be injected into Bitcoin just to protect the value of that so-called lake is going to be enormous.
Yeah, 100%. It really is incredible once you understand that, hey, whatever portion of the $900 trillion global, store value equity in the world or global capital of the world you think is going to end up into Bitcoin, you got to remember it's going into less than 21 million coins. And that just, big numbers are hard to wrap your head around. And, when you really get down into the hype and the hopium of where Bitcoin is going, sometimes these price predictions, we may be very conservative on them. Like maybe not in our lifetimes, maybe it's in our grandchildren's lifetimes. But if Bitcoin is around for the next 1,000 years, like Saylor likes to say, it's going to be an insane amount of money or wealth that you own today in the Bitcoin that you currently claim. So make sure that you are securing it correctly. Make sure you are thinking long term. Make sure you 10x whatever you have today in fiat terms, and that's how you should be securing this coin, because you want to be holding it long term. Don't trade. The hardest thing to do is to do nothing. And I think we've all been feeling this as Bitcoiners for the last couple of months. So it's like, man, it's very hard to just sit around and hold your Bitcoin and continue to stack when it's not really doing anything. Shit posting gets tiring sometimes. It runs, negative on your mental health at times. And you're like, all right, I just need to unplug for a little bit. Like, we all know where it's going. Dude, is Opti going to be around for 1,000? Dude, I am not going to be a cyborg. I do not believe in chipping myself. I'm not about that. Anyways, I do want to talk about in the next segment this idea of corporate adoption of Bitcoin. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? We had this huge announcement from Jack Mallers come out yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? And it has spurred this argument again. Maybe you could say it's a new FUD line, is like, corporations, are they co-opting Bitcoin? So I got a good article from Bitcoin Mag, and then I have a clip from my boy Nolan. He's one of my favorite content creators, and I don't think he gets enough love on the show. So I want to play his clip, but we'll break down, is corporate adoption of Bitcoin a bad thing? Are they co-opting us? Hence why I asked you in the chat, is Bitcoin winning, yes or no? And we'll get to that. Let's go.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, guys, if you want the best of the best hardware wallet, get yourself the Cold Card Q. This is the industry standard cold card or hardware wallet in the game. I think all Bitcoiners would agree to that. All right, guys. So as I was saying, actually here, let me full screen myself a little bit. Laying the context, I just kind of laid it out. Ever since Jack Mallers kind of came out and announced his 21 Capital partnering with Tether and SoftBank and Cantor Fitzgerald, the meme, or rather the old FUD line of corporate co-option of Bitcoin is taking place right in front of our eyes. And, a new variation on the meme is starting to play out on Bitcoin Twitter with this idea of suit coiners are taking over. I find that very hilarious. The suit coiners are taking over Bitcoin. And so I want to kind of talk about that, and you guys let me know what you think in the chat. But I am going to start with this article here from Bitcoin Magazine. So they just dropped this, and then I'll lay out kind of the Jack Mallers take, and I'm going to tee up my boy Nolan as a clip here. So this is titled, this is on Bitcoin Magazine, is 8% of Bitcoin owned by institutions a threat to its future? Is Bitcoin's future at risk from 8% institutional ownership? Discover how firms and ETFs holding BTC could challenge its decentralized roots and market independence. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. You guys could find this on Bitcoin Magazine. I'm just going to kind of read the headlines here a little bit. So institutional ownership of Bitcoin has surged over the past year, with around 8% of the total supply already in the hands of major entities, and that number is still climbing. ETFs, publicly listed companies, and even nation states have begun securing substantial positions. This raises important questions for investors. Is this growing institutional presence a good thing for Bitcoin? And as more BTC becomes locked up in cold wallets, treasury holdings, and ETFs, is our on-chain data losing its reliability? In this analysis, we dig into the numbers, trace the capital flows, and explore whether Bitcoin's decentralized ethos is truly at risk or simply evolving. And of course, there's new whales, and let's start with the Treasury of publicly listed companies tables. Major companies, including Strategy, Metaplanet, and others, have collectively accumulated more than 700,000 Bitcoin, and also the ETFs have acquired more than 1 million Bitcoin. Considering that Bitcoin's total hard cap supply is 21 million, this represents roughly 3.33% of all BTC that will ever exist. While that supply ceiling won't be reached in our lifetime, the implications are clear. The institutions are making long-term bets. And of course, there's some good charts and stuff. And then it starts talking about the lost Bitcoin. And, we don't really know how much is lost, but the average guess is around somewhere between 3 to 5 million Bitcoins are lost. So we all do math of Bitcoin, total global capital divided by 21 million. I think we can probably lower those numbers to maybe a conservative idea of 18 million. Maybe it's all the way down to we're all vying for 15 million Bitcoin. So we don't know how much is lost, but there's less Bitcoin than we even think. And then, of course, this is where the main crux of the FUD or conversation happens, is are institutions controlling Bitcoin? So with all of the corporations coming into Bitcoin, does this mean Bitcoin is being controlled by corporations? They argue not yet, but it does signal a growing influence, especially in price behavior. Now, this is kind of talking about this idea we've been covering the last couple of weeks of, or rather months now, that Bitcoin does seem very correlated to tech stocks. You know, when there is macroeconomic uncertainties, Bitcoin usually reacts first, whether that's dumping or if there's a bullish indicator to basically go into a sovereign, you know, non-political store of value, you start to see gold pump and then Bitcoin pump. So there is this correlation right now because there is big money, you know, huge capital getting into Bitcoin. And obviously they're reacting to different market forces. And the most liquid saleable asset or money in the world is, of course, Bitcoin. It runs 24/7, 365 days out of the year. And so, you know, you sell what is most liquid up front. You basically, whatever is not bolted down to the floor, you sell that when you need it. And that's kind of what we're seeing play out in Bitcoin. And then, of course, the need to adapt. And I think this is what we're seeing. And even Bitcoiners need to adapt to where we are right now. Hence why I want to play this Nolan clip for you guys coming up shortly. So historically, much of Bitcoin's trading activity has occurred off-chain, particularly on centralized exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, and once upon a time, FTX. These trades rarely appear on-chain in meaningful ways, but still influence price and market structure. Today, we face a similar situation, only with better tools. Obviously, ETF flows, corporate filings, and even nation-state purchases are subject to disclosure regulations. Unlike opaque exchanges, these institutional players are often must disclose their holdings, providing analysts with a wealth of data to track. And moreover, though, on-chain analysts isn't static and there's different tools to check out. So yet this does not spell doom for Bitcoin's decentralization or the relevance of on-chain analytics. In fact, as more BTC is held by identifiable institutions, the ability to track flows becomes even more precise and the retail footprint remains dominant. Like, if you understand the on-chain metrics, the majority of coin is held by individuals. Yes, there is a new influx and they're getting a sizable chunk into institutions and of course starting to see nation state treasuries start to increase. But the majority of Bitcoin is held by individuals. And so, you know, I think those concerns are a little overbloated. But the conclusion, to wrap it up, institutional interest in Bitcoin has never been higher between ETFs, corporate treasuries, and sovereign entities. Over 2.2 million Bitcoin are already spoken for, and that number is growing. This flood of capital has undoubtedly had a stabilizing effect on price during periods of market weakness. However, with that stability comes entanglement. Bitcoin is becoming more tied to traditional financial systems, increasing its correlation to equities and broader economic sentiment. Yet, this does not spell doom for Bitcoin's decentralization or the relevance of on-chain analytics. In fact, as more BTC is held by identifiable institutions, again, the ability to track flows becomes even more precise. Bitcoin's ethos of decentralization isn't at risk. It's just maturing. And as long as our analytical frameworks evolve alongside the asset, we'll be well equipped to navigate whatever comes next. So, you know, you don't have to take our words. You can tell me in the chat whether we're wrong here, but I kind of fall on the same side that yes, you know, a lot of Bitcoin, maybe it's a little worrying that it's going into institutions. You know, BlackRock and Larry Fink and Michael Saylor are talking about holding millions of coins or hundreds of thousands of coins for forever, and it's never going to go back into the market. But the majority of Bitcoin is held by individuals like you and I. Anyways, I want to pivot this conversation into the recent announcement by Jack Mallers in 21 Capital. And I have a tweet here by Anthony Pompliano to kind of get me into what I really want to play for you guys. So Pomp goes 21, a new public company was announced this morning. This was the 23rd. So what's that, Wednesday? It will hold more than 42,000 Bitcoin, around $4 billion on its balance sheet, and work to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible in the coming years. The company is backed by Tether, SoftBank, and Cantor Fitzgerald. The CEO will be Jack Mallers. And I think this is the crux. Things are going to get crazy as more public entities start to enter the Bitcoin world. So now I want to play you this clip here from Nolan, because I think he does a good job of summing up where we are right now in the movie. And I haven't heard a lot of Bitcoiners put it in this way. And I think this is like the bullish takeaway here. So I'm going to play the Nolan clip. It's a minute. And then I have one last tweet for you guys and we'll chat about it.
Combine the trade war, the Japanese element, and the stable coins. And suddenly it's not just a MicroStrategy clone. This looks like a ship designed to chart through the waters of change that have been announced by the Trump administration the past few days. This looks purpose-built to survive a reorganization of global finance. Already Bitcoin is leading in that narrative. Of course, Bitcoin is leading in that narrative. But to see these huge pieces organize themselves around Bitcoin in order to traverse this market fluctuation, huge market change, the biggest market change people have said we've seen in 80 years since Bretton Woods or the end of the gold standard. So watching Bitcoin be the organizing principle for real huge institutions, the biggest Japanese VC fund, the biggest stablecoin issuer, and a real Wall Street player, to me shows that Bitcoin really is that life raft, really is exactly what we've all been saying for years, because these guys are putting their
Love it. This would be my takeaway as well. One thing we are noticing right now, and I've been kind of bringing this up on the show, we are seeing that, whether you think this is just Trump, not knowing what he's doing and messing up global markets, or you think it's a controlled demolition so that we can kind of break up the global order, we are seeing one thing is becoming very, very obvious. We are entering, as Nolan was saying, a reorganization of the monetary order. And most people don't know what's going to win at the very end of the day. As a Bitcoiner, like Nolan was saying, I think Bitcoin will be the winner. And seeing 21 Capital with its partners come out, announce such a big company with such a big treasury, I think it goes to show that we're starting to see, as we were saying a couple of days ago, it's not so much that Wall Street has entered Bitcoin, it's now Bitcoin that has entered Wall Street. And I think this is going to fundamentally change the game. I'm super bullish on 21. Again, I'm not giving financial advice. I would not buy the stock. I'd just say buy Bitcoin because that's what they're doing. But I think the point remains the same. We are seeing a restructuring of the monetary order, whether that's Larry Fink trying to position their customers into getting Bitcoin, whether we're seeing nation states talk about Bitcoin and stablecoin adoption, or it's BRICS nations essentially saying, every nation around the world right now, besides the U.S., say, hey, we don't want U.S. debt. We don't want treasuries right now. We're trying to find an alternative. I think this is the main signal here. You're watching a restructuring of the monetary order in real time. And as a biased Bitcoiner, I say Bitcoin is the big winner at the end. Now, last thing I want to say, Nolan kind of brought it up. We brought it up on Wednesday, this idea of MicroStrategy and 21 being competitors or rivals. And here on Jack Mallers' announcement, I thought it was just, some good camaraderie in the Bitcoin space. So here's Jack Mallers. He did a 15-minute video explaining what he's doing. And Saylor responds, congratulations on the launch of 21. And Jack Mallers, same team, salute emoji. So we're seeing things play out where, as a Bitcoiner, we kind of know what the end game is. And of course, this isn't like we're all in a kumbaya here. We're all in the Pac-Man game of trying to acquire as much Bitcoin. But it is very interesting. And one of the things my friend said, I'm blanking. I think it was Full-Time Bitcoin, FTB on Twitter. He said, it's very interesting to kind of reflect on Saylor's behavior the last couple of months. It seemed like he was panic buying Bitcoin every week. And it's probably because he knew that Jack Mallers was coming out. So as more big companies compete, as bigger institutions and nation states come in Bitcoin and compete, as Wall Street competes to acquire as much Bitcoin, this benefits you. And, I just really love that Nolan take. And that's the only reason I did this whole clip. I needed to get Nolan on the show. We got to get Nolan back on the show. Anyways, I'll go to Sophie. Sophie, what do you think about this? You weren't here when we talked about 21. Do you think we're seeing this monetary restructuring in real time? I know Nico rants about Trump a lot to you. So what do you think's playing out in global TradFi currently?
Well, actually, I think the beauty of all of this is that it has very little to do with Trump. I think actually the Fed and what they're doing has more to do with government regulation and them going to probably, pitch deregulation to Congress. That has more to do with the political side. This is the private institutions, the private sector of the United States furthering their belief and their backing of Bitcoin. And, I'm tired of all of these purity tests that we're playing mostly online. And look, everyone's freaking out that Bitcoin is being co-opted by corporations, by the people in suits, Wall Street billionaires, whatever. But here's what I've noticed after years of being in this space. Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. You come in thinking that, you know, these corporations, they're thinking like, oh, I'm going to make my customers so much money by making, you know, them buy our stonks. And in reality, what's going to happen is that they're going to buy Bitcoin and they're going to turn into Bitcoiners. And the next thing you know, they're going to be tweeting about energy sovereignty, Austrian economics, about how they're eating a piece of ribeye every single day. And they're going to be worried about the fact that we're printing money, and they're going to actually be changed by Bitcoin, because the ethos that we have as a community is so much larger than the profits that they can be making for their customers. They don't have to believe it right now, but by mere adoption, it's going to make people change. So if Jack Mallers brings SoftBank and Cantor Fitzgerald into the game, that's awesome. Put them in the arena, because Bitcoin is going to work on them. Bitcoin isn't going to make people sell out. It's going to call people in.
Yeah, totally. And again, I brought this up on Wednesday. The interesting story about the SoftBank CEO, he bought like the 2017 top. And he said, like, I had too big of holdings in the 2018 bear market and it was distracting me from my work. And he sold out at, like, I think it was somewhere between $50 to $130 million loss. And now he's coming back into the game, 8 years later or 7 years later. And it does kind of remind you of Saylor's trajectory as well. You know, he was a big Bitcoin hater, and then now he's like the biggest Bitcoin proponent. And
you buy it at the price you deserve.
Exactly.
And it changes you. It changes your entire way of life. People don't believe it. They call us extremists. They call us weirdos. They call us toxic Bitcoin maximalists. But in reality, we're trying to teach you how to live a better life and how to be on a better monetary standard. It's like when they tell you to eat your vegetables or your steak or whatever, in this case, when you're little, like, and you're like, no, I want to eat junk food and processed foods. And then when you're older, you realize, oh, damn, like I probably should have, you know, eaten real food. This is the real food. This is the signal. This is the stuff that's going to carry us into a brighter future. So it's just a matter of time. I'm all for it. I'm so happy that bigger corporations are buying Bitcoin, because it's just a signal of adoption, a general adoption.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Someone said, preach, Sophie. What we're seeing, and I think whether it's the Fed news in the beginning of the show, whether it's this 21 Capital story, whether it's Saylor or Trump embracing Bitcoin, you know, the Besant camp embracing Bitcoin, what we're seeing is Bitcoin being seen as a mature asset in traditional finance. And I know that everyone in chat saying, like, if you say this time is different, that means like you're the chump for exit liquidity. But the narrative around Bitcoin, I think, has fundamentally changed in the last year or so. And it's going to be very exciting to see where this goes. Anyways, I'm ranting too much. Brian, what's your thoughts on maybe even the 21 Capital, but what Nolan was saying?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, this is what we do. We rant. I mean, this is, you know, there's no problem there. I mean, so going back to the beginning of that segment where the concern was, are institutions getting too much Bitcoin? Are you freaking kidding me? Is this the problem that we've caused? Is that banks and institutions want Bitcoin so bad that now we as Bitcoiners are whining about it? Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful world that we've created for ourselves. I think it was Notorious B.I.G. that said, "Mo money, mo problems," right? Like this, this is what happens when you get to be somebody in the world. Guess what? Nobody hates you when nobody knows your name. But when you become famous, people start to hate you, right? Like, but there's also people that love you. Yeah. So there's good and bad that come with progress in life. Like when you do anything successfully, it's going to catch the attention of other people. Now, this is true for all of history. Like if you go back to the Bronze Age and you know, bronze technology comes out and people are making swords. Well, your tribe or your people group better acquire as many swords as possible, or you will be irrelevant. The ones who didn't acquire swords didn't move to the next epoch of human history. Then you move forward to the catapult. And if you don't acquire enough catapults, then you don't stay around. And then you move up to the industrial age. And if you don't acquire enough airplanes, then your country becomes conquered by another bigger country that has more airplanes. You do this. Like we're in an arms race right now. And just because the big boys are acquiring Bitcoin doesn't mean that hope is lost. No, who cares? You acquire as much Bitcoin as you possibly can, and you will be protected for that. And so that it's like, ask, anytime somebody that's new to Bitcoin or isn't in Bitcoin, says, oh, aren't you worried that these institutions are buying so much Bitcoin? You know what? I always ask them politely. I said, how much Bitcoin do you need to have in order to control the network? And they're like, I don't know. Must be like it. If you understand Bitcoin, you could have 21 million Bitcoin and you don't control the network. So run a node, mine, hold Bitcoin, all those things. That's great. You can protect yourself by doing those things. It's not proof of stake. That's why we don't Ethereum. Because yes, if you are on Ethereum, the more Ethereum you have, you control the network. We are liberating ourselves from that because we're about proof of work. Bitcoin is proof of work. So put in the work. Fast forwarding to the clip about Cantor Fitzgerald. Can anybody go Google who is the chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald? It's Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is probably the second most influential. He's the Secretary of Commerce in the Trump administration. He's probably the second most influential person in terms of monetary policy in Trump's ear. His company is Cantor Fitzgerald. His company just started a publicly traded Bitcoin acquisition company. So is the writing on the wall? Like we always said, oh my gosh, Nancy Pelosi, she got all these stock trades, and man, we didn't find out about these stock trades until after they happened. So people weren't able to profit off of them. You see the move right now. Do you want the heads up on what's going to happen? Cantor Fitzgerald is in the White House influencing Trump's policy on Bitcoin, and they are buying like crazy. Act accordingly.
Bars, hold on. I think if you wrap what Brian just said with what Nolan said, and I know this is kind of an out there idea, but we are finding ourselves currently in like an economic world war right now. And it's not kinetic. It's about trying to acquire the most pristine capital, period. And if you're a Bitcoiner, you understand that is Bitcoin. And seeing these, as Brian was saying, the writing on the wall, Howard Lutnick, he's literally in the Trump administration launching a, company to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. If this is a signal for what you should be doing personally, like you're asleep at the wheel. This is the writing on the wall. This is what I think most people aren't seeing if you're wrapped up watching traditional corporate press. If you're not fully inundated with Bitcoin content, you're probably missing out on the biggest, opportunity to change your life. And if you're watching this show right now, you're here. You should be stacking. And that's what 3,400 of you guys live right now on Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. Like you guys are ahead of the game. So, you guys are front running everything. And, you could argue that maybe this is kind of like a psyop here or something that you're being kind of led to believe you had front run institutions, but you're still front running the majority of not only retail, but the population and global capital. So hold on to your Bitcoin as tightly as you can. Make sure it's secure. This is the best thing you can be doing. All right, guys. So we're going to talk with Brian of Orange Pill App, but you guys have probably heard about Orange Pill App. So we're going to get some updates on the cool things they're doing. And again, stick around because there's a cool call to action that you guys can be a part of. So let's get into that.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hiveddigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.
Let's go. All right, Brian. Good to have you on the show. Always a pleasure when you come on, bro. Let's just do a literally 2-sentence plug for Orange Pill app for people that may not be familiar with it, and I'll pull up the QR code, and then let's talk about your recent updates or recent drops and the call of action, because I think that's pretty cool. So here we go, guys. Scan the QR code. Now, Brian, do the 1-minute elevator pitch. I'm sure most of them have heard about Orange Pill app. They're one of our sponsors. We love them. But for those that maybe aren't familiar with it, what is Orange Pill app? And then let's talk about your latest drops.
Well, let me say it like this. I'm never brief, but I'm going to be brief right now. There are Bitcoiners in your neighborhood that you don't know, and Orange Pill app is how you can become friends with those people. If you want to make in real life Bitcoin connections, this is the way to do it.
100%. And I like, you guys trolled me last time you came on. Actually, Mateo put me on blast last time you came on because I wasn't responding to my I hardly respond to my like actual text messages. I'm looking at my phone and I have like 15 text messages I haven't responded to. So it wasn't an Orange Pill app thing. It's more of a behavioral default here, a behavioral issue on my end. But I have been responding to you guys, but I say it constantly. The biggest thing I did that improved my life was obviously not just partnering with a Bitcoiner to create Simply Bitcoin for you guys, but moving to an area where I had Bitcoin friends. And the thing I love about Orange Pill app is like, we're all basically the lone crazy Bitcoiner. So you need to connect with Bitcoiners, and Orange Pill app is a great way to do that. So
Opti's going to find his future wife on the Orange Pill app.
It is not a dating app, Sophie. Come on. It is not a dating app.
It's not a dating app.
But it could be.
But
everything's a dating app if you use it correctly.
Everything's a dating app. Well, there's actually been a couple who's now married. They met through Orange Pill app. So
there you go.
I mean, it's kind of a dating app. I mean,
what's hope for me yet?
Biggest dating app in the world is
there's no hope for you, Opti.
Biggest dating app in the world is not Tinder. It is Instagram. So who knows? I guess yeah, you're right, Opti. Everything's a dating app if you want it to be. But it's also a friend app as well. Now, here's the exciting thing. I'm not just talking about making Bitcoin friends today. We actually have a wallet. We just built a wallet, a native wallet to Orange Pill app. It launched last month, and it has more robust functionality than any other Lightning wallet in the world. Now, yes, you can pay invoices and all that kind of stuff, but we added features that are only available to the functions that we have in Orange Pill app. So what are some of the things that you have in Orange Pill app? You have things like group chats. Well, if I want to mass zap, which is one of our new features that doesn't exist anywhere else, I can go into my group chat. So if I have a group chat of local entrepreneur Bitcoiners and I want to zap everybody in that group chat, say there's 50 people in there or there's 10 people in there, I can click the lightning bolt and with a few strokes, zap everybody in that group. I can zap them an invite. I can send a message to them through obviously using the Lightning Network, which is cool. I can also geo zap. So because we have location-based services for the app, which you can toggle on or off anytime. But if you have that location on, people can zap you by city, by country. They can zap the entire world. And so what are the implications of something like that? Well, we're not looking forward to the next natural disaster, but we know that the next natural disaster is going to happen. And when it does, we're ready with Orange Pill app to enable the Bitcoin social layer to positively impact those Bitcoiners who are negatively impacted by the next natural disaster. So what do I mean by that? Say there's God forbid, there's another hurricane in Florida, which we know there's going to be, but if it's big enough where people are having problems, they might get a check from FEMA for $700 in a week, 2 weeks, a month, or members of Orange Pill app can go on and zap everyone in Florida or everyone in Miami or everyone in your town instantaneously. So while governments and regulators and all that kind of stuff are scrambling to try and help people locally, through the Orange Pill app's wallet, we can natively zap those people. Now, one of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to set a record. And at, what is it? It's 12:42 Pacific time right now. By 1 o'clock Pacific time, so in just a few hours, in about 2 hours from now, anybody who wants to participate in this, you guys are going to get to participate in a world record breaking day in Bitcoin. Today, the record for Lightning payments around the world is going to be set. It's estimated that the world record right now is about 475 to 500,000. That's probably on the higher end. Today, Orange Pill app's Lightning node is going to process over 500,000 transactions, and we need you guys to be a part of history in doing this. So we're going to kick this off at 1 o'clock Pacific time today. Orange Pill app is going to zap the world. So anybody who has an Orange Pill app wallet is going to automatically get zapped sats into their wallet. That is about 50,000 wallets that right off the bat we're going to zap. So we're going to already have 50,000 Lightning transactions in an instant. Now, we need you guys to help participate in helping us bridge the gap of the other 450,000. So if we get 1,000 Bitcoiners to send 500 sats, so basically you can mass app, you can with one button say, hey, I want to send 500 people one sat. We will break the record today, and you will get to go into the annals of Bitcoin history by saying the day that the Bitcoin Lightning Network was set, I was a part of it. Now, you might not be Michael Saylor. I might not be Jack Mallers. We might not have our names in the history books because we created the first publicly traded companies that stacked 1 million Bitcoin or anything like that. But plebs can participate in the social layer. And where is the social layer happening? Well, it's happening on Orange Pill app. And we have these new cool tools like the Orange Pill app Lightning Wallet that enable new things, new concepts with the Lightning Wallet that have never been done before. So if you're on the Lightning or if you're on Orange Pill app, by 1 p.m. Pacific time today, you will get zapped sats. And we hope that you turn around and maybe share some of your own sats or some of the sats that we send you to other people as well, so that we can break that 500,000 transaction milestone.
Incredible. Okay. So you said you just need 1,000 people to send 500 sats to 500 people.
So they only need to send one sat.
Yeah, five. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they could just say, and it's super simple. And when you guys go into Orange Pill app, it'll literally, who do you want to zap? Okay, I'm going to zap this group of people. For example, we have a sats faucet on there. If you guys remember the old Bitcoin faucet, you could go, I mean, none of us were around for that, right? Where you could go and just get like 5 Bitcoin every day by just solving a CAPTCHA on a website. So we even have a sats faucet group in Orange Pill app. If you join that group, you get zapped like 21 sats every once in a while. Everybody in that group just got a random 21 sats earlier this morning. So we have things like that. You can just go into a group, or you can go into the search bar and just look up whatever type of group of people you want to send. So if I live in Southern California, so I could go and look up a city in Southern California, and I want to say, I want to zap everybody in this city one sat. So I just do that. I click the button and it goes out to however many Bitcoiners are in my city. So you could do that. And so you could send 500 different Lightning invoices with one click of a button.
Incredible. Well, I do have a goldfish memory, so I'm going to try to remember 2 hours from now. But I was a part of the Lightning Network torch, the original one. You know, I don't even remember. Was that 2018 or something like that? So I'm really going to try to remember. I do want to be a part of this. I think this is pretty cool. Hopefully we can break that today. This is awesome. But we do have some questions in the chat, Brian, for I guess people that aren't familiar with the Orange Pill app's business model. There's actually 2 questions, and I will link them together. So RL says, is this app free or is it subscription based? And the follow-up one, which is probably a hot take here, spicy question, is, does it increase your chances of being $5 wrench attacked? And that's the reason I combine them, is because this is why you do what you do in the way that you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is part of it. I thank you for pairing those two together, because yes, the first one answers the second one, at least to some degree. So it is a subscription-based app, and it's like Bitcoin. You pay to use it. You don't send a Bitcoin transaction for free. That's why the network doesn't get spammed. And so for the same reason, there's a subscription to enter Orange Pill app. It's a private club. And that is one of the most high signal things we can do to ensure that there's no spammers or scammers or anybody that's just trying to ask you how your crypto trading is going. You're not going to get any of that in the same way that you would on another platform. And so there's that degree of filter right there. And then it's funny, the $5 wrench attack. At Pacific Bitcoin a couple of years ago, we actually had Ben Askren come out and do a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminar for us. It was called the $5 wrench attack seminar. So it was like, hey, learn how to not get choked out. But the fact of the matter is, you exercise all of the cautions you exercise in real life. Do you, on Twitter, that's where it's free, do you, and nobody assuming knows your location, do you put out your, do you put out your Bitcoin address out there? Do you put out your seed phrase? No, like, we exercise certain cautions in life. And so I would say that with all things, like, of course, exercise caution. You're a Bitcoiner, you're self-sovereign. Yes, your money is your responsibility. And so take the appropriate cautions, just like anything else. I've met plenty, I've made plenty of business deals with people whom I've met online. And then at some point we have to jump into the real world. And that's even true in the fiat world. I've made fiat business deals where I was connected to this person through LinkedIn or whatever it happens to be. And then we make real world business. And there's a degree of risk to that, but I make sure that I mitigate that risk by just exercising general IQ, like of a basic IQ level. It's very, very safe. And so I've met dozens of Bitcoiners in my city, and I can tell you that the experience is always absolutely fantastic. Most Bitcoiners, sadly, don't know other real life Bitcoiners, or maybe they've gone to a conference and they've met them there, but then they don't know them in their hometown. I guarantee you there's probably a meetup closer than you think. Orange Pill app is the world's largest repository of Bitcoin only events. So say you don't want to meet somebody one-on-one. Well, that's fine. You can find you might have a local Bitcoin only meetup. By the way, Bitcoin only. It's very, very difficult to find Bitcoin only meetups. We also filter, so any event that you find in the app is also a Bitcoin only. You're not going to show up. It's not going to be a surprise Web3 meetup or something like that. It's going to be high signal Bitcoin only. But more than likely, there's one at a coffee shop right around the corner from you. And so the value proposition of this is so high that it's one of those things, like, Bitcoiners tend to get it. I will pay for something that has high value. I pay for a bit to send a Bitcoin transaction because the alternative is I'm told that I can send a Visa transaction for free. But is it really free? No, it's not really free. At least with Bitcoin and Orange Pill app, we're transparent in the way we do things. We tell you what the cost is up front so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to use it or not. And we found that over 16,000 Bitcoiners have already joined the network, and it's growing every single day. So it's kind of like Bitcoin. This thing seems to be going in one direction.
Absolutely love it, Brian. That was a great response. I covered everything that you wanted to talk about. So we have more time if you want to chat about some other stuff here. What else you got top of mind?
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I love that you brought up the fact that natural disasters do happen. I'm currently in Puerto Rico. I saw the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. I've lived in Miami my whole life, where I've dealt with hurricanes, and I've seen the huge impact that it has on communities. And I just want you to talk a little bit more about how that, if like the Orange Pill app, can help people come together during those times, because like you mentioned, FEMA will, you'll wait like 2-3 weeks, like sometimes never, to get those checks and that support that you need almost immediately. I remember recently when one of the hurricanes hit up in the west side of Florida, there was the Bitcoin mom who was, basically survived that whole ordeal because of the support of the Bitcoin community. Yeah. So if you could, I think that that's so important. And if you could just talk a little bit more about that, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, so I live in Southern California, when the LA fires were going on here, now thankfully I wasn't in it, but Mateo, the founder of the app, he had to go get out of his house and flee, because he lives, close to where the epicenter of this was. And we knew lots of people in LA. We didn't have the wallet. It was in beta at that time. We didn't have it fully launched in the app, but what we did see from what we did have in the app was we still had the ability to connect with other Bitcoiners. So the social layer, even without the wallet, even without being able to zap people in that area, which again, you could do now. So like if the LA fires happened today, anyone on Orange Pill app could say, hey, bro, do you like, let me zap you some sats so you can go get an Airbnb tonight in another town or something like that. You could do that. But what was happening back then was we had the ability to message those people, and Bitcoiners were offering other Bitcoiners a place to stay, like a place to stay. And so they were reaching out. It's like, hey, bro, I know you're out in LA. I live in San Diego. Do you want to drive a couple hours and I have an extra bedroom, or we can put you up on the couch or something like that. It was amazing, the response that was happening. And so it's not just the monetary resource, it's the support, the love, like, hey, bring your kids and camp out here for a night because we're going to take care of you. So yeah, the social layer comes to the rescue. And that, again, even then it presents the opportunity of like, I'm meeting other people that I don't know, but as you talk to them, you can use your spidey sense to kind of filter out the noise here. The cool thing about the app too, if you are concerned about, privacy, you can be as anonymous as you like. Like the Orange Pill app wallet is actually the only, and Orange Pill app in general is totally KYC free. So like there's no know your customer information in the app. And I believe we're one of the last US based Lightning wallets that actually has that. Every other Lightning wallet, you have to do that. So it's one of those things, like the low hanging fruit is to say, oh, is this going to a potential $5 wrench attack? The high hanging fruit is you're fundamentally changing people's lives and reaching out and helping them in their most desperate moments. And that's what makes for a winning side. Like the movements of history that win aren't the ones that, like, when things got tough, they crumbled. No, when things got tough, you reinforce your social movement by saying, okay, we faced opposition from the government. Boom, Bitcoin fought back. Now we're helping Bitcoiners when it comes to natural disasters, or when somebody has cancer, or when somebody loses their job. We're reinforcing Bitcoiners. And we do that, one, because we have a heart for those people, but two, it's because when we take care of those in the network, it reinforces the network, and it just gets us one step closer to hyper Bitcoinization. So it doesn't really matter if you're doing it for altruism or you're just doing it because you have aligned incentives. It just seems to be that Bitcoin keeps winning, whether you're doing it because you love people or whether you're doing it because you love yourself. In either case, it tends to kind of lead to the same outcome. And when we're seeing that in real time.
I love when Bitcoin companies align themselves with humanity and community, because it makes it more than just the monetary thing, but a part of the culture. So thank you for what you're doing. I think that's really great. And I guess the follow-up question to that would be, if you have any future plans of using this app to create something like Give, Send, Go, or like a fundraising kind of app where people can raise money for each other with sats.
Yeah. So we actually partner with pretty frequently. We partner with Geyser Fund. So if anybody hasn't worked with Geyser Fund before, they've helped us raise money. So we're big fans of Geyser Fund. And I definitely see, because of our Lightning wallet integration now, there's probably a lot more room for partnerships with them going forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if I could see this playing out this way, right? maybe there's 16,000 members on Orange Pill app, but maybe there's a ton of Bitcoiners that haven't signed up for Orange Pill app yet, but they give to Geyser Fund, and then Geyser Fund uses our geo zapping capability to zap those people. So I think we can harness each other's platforms to make sure that we're impacting Bitcoiners in the biggest way possible. Now, like, same thing. I mean, there's massive implications here. Like, think about if we went back to whenever the Canadian trucker rally was, what was that, 21 or 20? I don't know. It was in 2020 or 2021 was the Canadian trucker rally. Again, Bitcoiners would have been able to participate in geo-zapping Canadian truckers. So it's
That's
not just
right.
natural disasters, it's freedom movements around the world. So yeah, just take a cause anywhere that's geographically located somewhere around the world, and Orange Pill App's Lightning Wallet can help with that.
Yeah. Hey, Brian. Love it. Love it. One thing I do kind of want to talk about here is we kind of had this theme throughout this week, like a very subtle theme, starting this. Someone just said, I just subscribed to Forever, Laura. I just got a notification. All right. The people are jumping in now. We had Svetsky on Monday, and the reason I'm bringing this on, or was it Tuesday? Monday, I think Monday. The reason I'm bringing this up is because he just dropped his book, the Bushido Bitcoin, and it's huge emphasis on like the character development of Bitcoiners themselves. And I know that there is kind of a pushback on this idea of like Bitcoin, the social layer. And the reason, again, I'm bringing this up is because, Brian, I know you're very big on character development of Bitcoiners. So I want to tee you up, and this is how we're going to wrap up today's show. And I think this is all, all in the same lane here. This is all connected here. And I'm sure you can do a good job of connecting the dots for the people.
Okay, so the pushback on the Bitcoin social layer, I at the end of the day, I think there's going to be multiple camps. I mean, you see this in any kind of robust movement. Look at the church, right? The church is on every corner of the world, right? The church is probably the most successful movement in human history. Is there one sect of Christianity? No, there's like multiple sects of Christianity, right? There's the Catholic churches, the Baptists, there's the Presbyterians. So there's going to be Bitcoiners with different Bitcoin theology, if you want to put it that way. And I just personally believe that if Bitcoin's going to win, it's going to be based on the people. And I think that a group of people that is a moral people, that is a robust people, it adds to the inevitability of Bitcoin. The founding fathers of the United States, they said that our Constitution was written for a moral people. They said that this system is beautiful, but if we don't have moral people to continue to propel this system forward, then this democracy, this republic that we've created, will go the way of every monarchy and every dictator of human history. It doesn't matter how beautiful the system is if we don't have a good and moral people to uphold it. And so Bitcoin perhaps is a bit different because it's computer code. So the network itself and how transactions process and all those things, it will continue to function correctly. But the people on the other ends of those transactions, if they're not a good and moral people, if they don't have a general sense of wanting a better world and wanting better things for themselves, then perhaps that perhaps the future isn't so bright if we don't have those people helping facilitate the network. At the end of the day, I subscribe to the idea, and this sounds like heresy, but Bitcoin is without Bitcoiners is like a bunch of zeros and ones, right? Like Bitcoin is nothing without Bitcoiners. And so some people find that, like I said, to be heresy. I think other people find that to be empowering because it means that if you want a better world and you think Bitcoin's going to change the world, you don't just get to sit back on your hands and watch the world change before you. The call is for you to participate in that. So yeah, do things to help develop your character. I wholeheartedly agree with Svetsky on that, the Bushido aspect of it. But I believe that the network effect of people working together is just far more powerful than individuals just kind of aimlessly wandering through life.
Yeah, listen.
That's called motherfucking boy.
All right, guys. This was today's. Actually, I do got to plug our boys over at Bitcoin Magazine. We are taking over Vegas literally a month from now. Make sure you make it to Vegas, taking over the Venetian for what's this? 3 days, May 27th to the 29th, world's largest Bitcoin event. And again, I think if we break 100K by what's the meme? 100K by conference day. I think this is going to be the biggest Bitcoin conference ever. And that's, topping a few pretty spectacular conferences. So scan the QR code and use the promo code simply all caps to get 10% off. All right, guys, on that note, Brian, thanks for coming on, man. I was going to plug your Twitter, but let's just do this, guys. Go to the Orange Pill app. Scan the QR code from earlier or go to your whatever app store you have and message Brian through the Orange Pill app to get in touch. That's the best way to get in touch with Brian. But hey, Brian, if you want to plug your socials and all that stuff as well, that's more than okay.
Just Brian DeMint on Twitter. If you want to reach out to me there, I'm gonna get you plugged into Orange Pill app, guys. We're going to set history today in 2 hours. 2 hours from now, we're going to set the new milestone. And hopefully someday that'll get broken again. But the history books will record today, and you can either be just sitting doing whatever, you can be watching Netflix, whatever, or you can be making Bitcoin history. You can have your own Bitcoin history story to tell your kids. There's going to be that meme of, Grandpa, what were you doing on April 25th at 1 p.m. Pacific time? Oh, I was participating in the world's most amazing mass zap that the world had ever seen. And then the kid's going to say, freaking legend. All right. That's going to be you. Be a freaking legend.
Let's go. Yeah. Netflix is not an excuse. You get Netflix and Orange Pill Zap at the same time. So, you be a part of this.
Yeah, we're like the Netflix maxis are like, how dare you? Yeah.
How dare you shit on Netflix? I didn't want to do anything later. Oh man, Brian, thanks so much for coming on today. Here, let me pull you off the screen and hang back for a little bit so we can chat after the show. The beautiful and very toxic and extremist Sophie, aka Internet Sophie, aka the better half of Nico. Thank you for coming on the show. She'll be on the show more often. You want to say anything last word, Soph, or let's just sign off for Friday? It's Friday. Let me get out of here.
Let me get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Buy Bitcoin and the Fed and F the IRS.
Hey, all right. We'll give it some more horn. All right. Hang out. Let me wrap up today's show. All right, guys. This was the show for April 25th. I believe this is episode 1231. Wow, so many episodes. Anyways, have a good weekend. We love you guys. We will be back on Monday. I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to force and make sure that Nico comes back because your boy's cortisol levels were pretty high today, trying to scramble to make this work. I thought he was coming back too, guys. Anyways, it's your boy Opti. I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Get outside, call your loved ones, eat some good food, get a workout in, touch some grass, all that good thing. We'll see you on the other side.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.